Hi, I'm Anna. I'm a playwright and a screenwriter, and I'm sharing my writer's survival tips. And this is number 5. Go back to the source. I was thinking of lots of different names for this because I didn't actually give it a title when I shared the tip on Twitter. I'm going to read you the tweet because it's slightly more convoluted than the other ones, and then I'll explain what I mean. So, writer's survival tip 4. This one's wild. If you're working on something based on a real event, person, time in history, when you're really deep into it, take time to go back to the most basic source material, the wiki page, the original article that inspired you, the For Dummies website. Read the first few hits on Google. It's amazing how you can process this material in a different way once you're deep into a project rather than at the start. It can be a great reminder of what you love about it if you've lost that. It can help to ground you if you've gone off on a tangent. And now you're an expert in the subject, it's exciting to see how much more you see in it. So I've done this for a couple of projects I've worked on, things that were based in a particular period of history around a particular event or a particular person. And I think what tends to happen is, as artists or writers, we go, right, research is at the beginning of the process, and especially if we are starting from an article or we've been approached about writing a biopic of a certain person, etc. There's something really tangible to get stuck into then. I do not have the information I need about this person or this time or this event or this thing, whatever it is. It doesn't have to be an event or, to write about it with knowledge and authority. Authority sounds a bit, but so I'm going to do my research, and then we do our research, and I think it's always great to start at that entry level point. So it's like, yeah, the first few hits on Google. What does, what would anybody be able to find? Not someone that's writing a play. If someone just wanted to do the most basic research into this specific thing, what would they be finding? What's like the entry level information that's available? And then obviously from then you sort of branch off in different directions. People will all have their own different types of research that they like. Some people will be really academic. That's not me. Read books on the subject, watch films, watch documentaries. You might be one of those writers that feels really inspired by reading other art or looking at other art about the same thing. People are really different. But I think what tends to happen as we move through a project is we go, well, that's for rookies, right? That stuff right from the beginning. Yeah, I'm an expert now. And actually what's happened is when I've gone back and looked at that source material, I've been viewing it from a completely different point of view, but also it speaks to me in a completely different way. It's really humbling, but yet really exciting, because it's like, I'm just approaching this in a completely different way now. And it also reminds me of things that I have forgotten or I've left by the wayside. Oh yeah, I was really interested in that. I was really inspired by that. So yeah, that's checking in with the most basic of source material, the most basic of source research material, no matter how far into a project you are. And also just to say something about embracing, I would nearly call this little tip embracing For Dummies, but then I thought that sounded a bit confusing. But remember there used to be those books, I mean I think there still are, but like you could get a book on anything called For Dummies. So like Elizabethan England, For Dummies, or the invention of LSD, For Dummies. Two things that I've worked on over the last couple of years. And again, I think sometimes we feel a sort of that we should be that we're not dummies, right? That we're writers. We're going to write a play about this, or we're going to write a movie about this, or a TV show. A TV program. Why are we approaching such basic research? But I say, certainly for someone like me, like, embrace that stuff. I will happily say, when I was doing an adaptation of Mother Courage and Her Children for the Royal Exchange, I spent a lot of time on the BBC GCSE bite-sized website about Brecht. It was useful for me to get that really clear basic information as though it was written for a GCSE student. So embrace that stuff. Don't be embarrassed or feel that you should somehow be more advanced. And similarly, if you've worked up a pitch document for something you're working on, very often pitch documents, and I'll do a separate video on pitch docs because they're very confusing if you don't know, if you're not sort of in it. And they're still confusing for me sometimes. It's like, what is a treatment? What is an outline? What is, how are those, what's a one-pager? What information should they include? Are there any rules? But if you've created one of those at the beginning of your process, or indeed, if you've been approached by a TV production company or a theatre that say, we're really interested in this, we've worked up this one-pager, what do you think as a writer? Would you be interested in coming on board? Then refer back to those documents frequently. They are really, really useful for keeping you grounded, but also doing something that I like to think of as anchoring. When we're working on a project, particularly if it's a collaborative project, particularly if there are lots of different voices involved, as time moves on, there's naturally change in a project. Sometimes it will change its identity completely. Sometimes that's to do with other voices kind of coming in, and sometimes it's just to do with the natural way that the project has developed. I think when we're working on something over a long period of time, it's really easy to lose sight of why we loved it in the first place. And so those documents or those initial bits of research, they can form anchors, which when we feel ourselves bobbing out into the sea of the unknown, of kind of losing track of why we're doing this in the first place, why we loved this project, why we thought this was an exciting thing to write a play about. Find the anchors that you can go back to, you can return to, and you can read again, or listen to again, or watch again if they're films, or a piece of art, or a documentary that can take you back and remind you why. So it's an anchor that's bringing you back to the harbour of safety and artistic inspiration. So yeah, that's tip number 4. Go back to the source.